Okay, I think we are good now. I think we're good now. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to put in Dr. Charles first. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Doc. Can you hear me?
Okay, got it. We're good to go. All right. We are good to go. I knew what it was. I'm not going to tell everybody. I know what it was all about. Good. All right. We ready to go, Dr. C?
We're ready to go, bro.
All
Ready
right.
to go, Doc.
I am excited. So here we go. We're starting off. So, hey, it is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and you're a solution for someone's problem. I'm also I'm too many things going on. I'm also the president and CEO of the Express Your Vibe coaching communications platform. And as you know, we are brand new on a new platform for the first time. I'd like to thank everyone for supporting to get this first one off the ground. And big thanks to Eileen, Ellen Ann, Ahmed, and others. Thank you so much. I am very blessed and highly favored to have Dr. Charles Corprew on the line. I'm glad he slowed down.
What does that mean, Doc? You glad I slowed down? I never slow down.
Well, you know what? You're sitting still, somewhat still for a few minutes.
I guess you're right about that.
There
It's been a long time, man. I know my man Ahmed is like we had a great conversation the last time we talked, and then travel and technical difficulties and all kinds of stuff. It's just,
It's all good. It's all good. Well, Dr. Charles and I have been doing ongoing conversations for a while, and they have been entertaining, enlightening, educational, and empowering. And we're going to continue the conversation for those who, we need to introduce you, Dr. Charles, because this is a brand new platform. So you're a brand new guy. You know what? So introduce yourself to our audience, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, everyone. Always a pleasure to be with you, my good friend, Dr. Vibe. My name is Charles Corprew. I am the president of What's Your Revolution Consulting, a former professor at Loyola University. And I have spent much of my academic and personal life researching and studying and being a Black man.
Surprise, surprise.
Exactly. And so the concept that Dr. Vibe and I have worked on almost over a year now, Doc, it's been a while, is this idea of how do we go from hypermasculinity to healthy masculinity? And we have talked on a variety of topics. And our last conversation, just to kind of recap, was really in the aftermath of Dallas and Baton Rouge and what was going on there. And, it's just an interesting time in our country. And it'd be really interesting to talk about the stories that, that I've encountered over the last couple of weeks that were the impetus for this idea of the show, these cross-cultural conversations among men. But I think that the opportunity to have conversations with Brother Ahmed and the different folks who have been regulars on the show enlightens the people who have the ability to watch the show on a replay. I've had a number of colleagues talk about, I watched the show, I agree with some of the things you said, I disagree with some of the things you said, but it was a good opportunity to hear these varied conversations among men and women about what's going on in our society, particularly for men as they traverse this road of masculinity. And as we started this, Doc, it's also an opportunity for me to have conversation to work through some of the things that I go through. And so to have a sounding board. So I think that's why I think that the show has been at least a success for me. And I know that's selfish, but hopefully that has allowed other men to listen and have conversation.
Well, you know what? And I agree with you. And for me, it's a success. For me, it's a success because we're doing it. Anything else is gravy. And even if the conversation, some people don't agree, it's still conversation.
Right. No, and that's great. Yeah. And tonight's topic, those cross-cultural conversations, are really important to me because I think that we have to be able to educate each other. And if we can I can give you an example. I listened to this podcast called The Art of Charm. Have you ever heard of that?
Unfortunately, I do a few shows, so once in a while I do get a chance to listen to other people's conversations. So I need to get out of my broadcasting home once in a while.
Right. So The Art of Charm is a podcast that comes out maybe once a week, twice a week, and it really is about how to be successful in your personal and professional life. And they bring various professors, entrepreneurs, different people onto the show, but they also have a training which they call their Art of Charm boot camp. And so I was thinking, I listened to the podcast, it's pretty good. Let me think about going to this boot camp. So I began doing some homework on the Art of Charm. And so I looked through their website, and I didn't see anyone that looked like me. All of their testimonials were from men who didn't look like me, and particularly white men. All of their instructors were white. And so I then said, well, let me send an email, to ask this question. And so I got a response, and the question was, do you have a clientele of men of color? Because all I see on the website is, and your testimonials are white men. And as well, the instructors are all white men. And so how does your curriculum take into consideration the experiences of men of color? And so those were my questions. How do your experiences you are purporting that you're teaching interactions and communication skills, body language, all of these different things, but how are you then weaving that into a culture and race conversation as well? So the first email I got back, and this is a little bit of a long story, so I apologize, was that the respondent asked me to say, well, maybe this is your bias. This is your bias that you're thinking through, and that basically we have a lot of varied clientele. And I was like, wow, you just said it was my bias, when all I was asking was the question was that based on my research, there's nobody that looks like me on your website. So we went back and forth, and then the president of the corporation called, and he said, yeah, you know what, maybe you're right. I had never thought about this, and this is a pretty popular podcast, and they sell out, their boot camps sell out. But it was really interesting that they had never thought about how that looked for them. And so just to shorten the story a little bit, I got a phone call from them today. So it was really appropriate to have this conversation. They called back and so they were trying to sell me the product. They hadn't even conversed with each other, their sales team, that, hey, we're calling a guy that has asked all these questions. So in the middle of the conversation, I said, well, you're not answering my questions. He's like, we haven't thought about this. And particularly, we live in California. We're California guys. And we don't really see race.
Hold on a second. Say what they said again.
He said, we don't really see race.
I hope you called them.
I did. I did call him on that. And he said, when I look at people, I don't particularly see race. I said, well, that's a privilege that you have. That is a privilege that you have. I said, I grew up in the Deep South. I grew up in Virginia. I've been living in New Orleans, for the last 11. So for 45 of my years, I've lived in the South. I said, when I walk into a room, people see me. And I said, and I have to present my credentials, in certain respects that people will understand that they can feel comfortable, have conversation with me. And so that was, he's like, well, the curriculum is really not racially based. I said, well, maybe that's something that you need to think about, that you are advertising a curriculum that goes out and has interpersonal communication, but you're not taking into consideration the intersectionality of the men that you're putting out there. So it was a really interesting conversation. It really led into, I'm sorry for the long discussion, that we need to have these conversations, you know, cross-culturally and cross-racially, because I don't think some people don't understand the lived experiences of other men or of other people. And for him to say that, you know, well, I just don't think about race. You know, when I see other people, that's not the first thing. And that counter narrative is that I judge people, you know, on who they are. That's great. That's great that you get the privilege, that you have that privilege. But this all could have been answered with, hey, we haven't thought about, but this is a good idea, but we also have a great program. So long story, just to tell, you know, so very interesting, Doc. I'll let you go ahead and do the psychology behind it.
Well, I'm not, I think that when a person says today that they don't see race, I can understand why they're saying that. Maybe they're saying, you know, I treat everyone the same, but take a look around you, what's going on. Race is an issue. And just to build on what you said, a little bit of my own personal journey, I have deliberately put myself in other cultural situations in order to find out about them, but also for them to find out about me and my culture. Right. Even like, and I do it all the time. And I think, you know, one of the most radical examples is when I was younger, and I tell people when I was younger and I did have hair, maybe one day I'll show people I did have hair once. One of the things that I did was I was on the executive of the Chinese Canadian Youth Athletic Association. Only person of color. I refereed a pile of games. They had heard about me and approached me to be part of their association. I learned so much about other cultures. They learned a lot about my culture. And even up to yesterday, I was at an event and I was chatting there with two gentlemen who were white. We had an incredible conversation because we found relatability. And one of the things that I found out in my journey, especially online, is I've had the blessing and privilege to talk to men of different colors, different backgrounds, etc. A lot of them have more in common than they think.
Right. Exactly. And we have to be able to have those conversations and to interact with each other, Doc. And understand, you know, one of the things that I'm doing with my Kellogg project is that we're going to have what is called a series of Jeffersonian dinners. And I think I talked about this the last time, but these dinners are bringing 12 men together of various backgrounds with hopefully as much intersectionality as I can find to have these types of conversations. What is it like to be a man in your space, in the spaces that you're in? I think as you begin to think about bias and how do you overcome bias, you have to have a variety of experiences, particularly when you are afraid or fearful, you know, and you recognize that fear. How do you then go about moving past that and getting to understand the lived experiences of other people? What's up, Ahmed?
What is up,
Charles? Dr. Vibe.
You're not 100%
not yet.
You're getting there. You're climbing up. You're climbing up the mountain.
Yes, sir.
Good to have you on my first Fire Talk conversation. Here's something I want to ask both of you. In a lot of the environments that you are in, they're not all Black environments. When you are in environments with men who are not Black, how do the conversations go? And I want to talk about how the conversations, not about what you're meeting or what you're in that environment for. How do those conversations go?
Well, generally, what I find is that the initial tone of the conversation is that I'm talked down to until I begin to really open my mouth and show I'm constantly challenged every step of the way to show and prove why my existence is valid. So and generally that's with white men. If I'm dealing with Asians or Hispanics or any other culture, especially Asians, if I'm greeting them and in the language that they know and respect, and they know that I understand it and respect it, then I'm welcome with open arms. So as long as I'm showing respect to them, then it's okay. Let's talk or do business. But anytime I'm dealing with a white man, it's always I'm talked down to first, and I have to prove myself the entire time.
Dr. Charles, I want you to give your experience because I want to build on this. So go ahead, Dr. Charles.
I think Ahmed is right. And I think that I overcompensate in certain situations where I'll give you for instance, when I speak or when I'm going to do a consulting, I'm going to work with a group of people. I will send my info before, so they know who I am. And it's not just, and for me in the background, is that I feel like I have to do that so I can get all of the other stuff out of the way in the beginning, so I can just go to work. With you questioning, well, why are you bringing him? And it's very interesting that it's very interesting when I do a training or something that most of the positive reviews that I get are from women. But the negative reviews or the pushback that I get tends to be from white men. And so it's just very interesting how to navigate that sometimes. And that's not all. I'm not saying not all. It's just usually that pushback will come from. For instance, I was doing a training in Monroe, Louisiana, and we talked about epigenetics. And midway through this epigenetics conversation, a professor from one of the nearby universities, we got into an intellectual debate over epigenetics. And even though the research that I had presented, and even though being presented with information from the other participants, he still wanted to come at me, and at the end of it, he's like, I wasn't trying to come at you. I said, well, you were, but you know what? I expected that. Sure. And, it's okay because that's what I expect. So, and it's not everybody. And I think part of this, hopefully we get to this conversation, is that allies and positive experiences are out there as well. Go ahead, Doc.
So it's interesting that both of you said that the group that seems to be the most resilient, for lack of a better term, to having that cross-cultural conversation is white men.
Resilient or resistant?
Resistant. Let me use resistant. Because interesting how Ahmed said he doesn't have the same experience with Oriental men than he does with white men. And you put it out there that you have the most negative feedback from white men. Why do you feel this situation is? Why do you feel it's difficult, or you have to work harder to have those cross-cultural conversations with white men versus other groups?
I think that the perception going in, and I had this recently with a last, I do a meetup here in Maryland, and it's an open meetup. Anyone can come, and you can ask any question you like. I don't need to be prepped first. I know what I know, and a white family shows up, And the thing is that they begin to question me on like the formulas that I'm using to evaluate, certain deals. And I'm saying that this is standard, and here's why it's standard. And you can check with anyone about these formulas, but they're questioning me as to how I know them and where did I get my information from. And I felt that they were questioning my intelligence.
Yeah.
So which forced me then to start dropping knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. And then I kind of start to feel like inside that I'm being a jerk, because what I'm dropping, you or anyone else in the room doesn't even understand.
Right.
So I have to also check myself in my own head to make sure that, I'm not going way overboard. But they're questioning my intelligence.
Right. That same thing happened to me, Ahmed. I gave a speech a couple of weeks ago and dropped some statistics about the income wealth disparity between blacks and Hispanics and whites. And so I'm sure all of you know, I mean, it's a large disparity here in America. The average black household is like $7,113. This is based on the 2010 census data. And for Hispanics, it was a little over $8,000 compared to $111,000 for whites. And so it was interesting. After giving the statistics, a woman came up to me and said, well, thank you for your preparation, but I don't agree with those numbers. And I was like, one, you have the audacity to come up and say this to me, because I think if the superintendent had said this, would you have come up to him and said anything?
Correct.
Would you have said anything? And two, if you'd like to go to the 2010 census data, because I even made the point that we have a larger wealth gap than South Africa did during apartheid, but we don't talk about those things. And so it was really interesting. Like, oh, he said those things. Well, I need to question those things. I don't mind people questioning but it was just the audacity to come up and the way it was presented to me, like, you're lying.
Yes.
And so I feel you. Those things happen, and I think people have to understand what it's like to live in that experience, to really see what it's like. You can't understand my journey. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So let me ask, if there's the barrier of more cross-cultural conversations happening between, in this example, men of color and white men, why do you feel that conversation is like, and it's not universal, because I have a number of those conversations, but not all the time. What do you feel is the barrier, or some of the barriers, for lack of those cross-cultural conversations?
Can I just answer? And I mean, we've had these conversations, Dr. Vibe, a lot, and I have really held my tongue on saying this. And I want to say this, that the main problem, the main issue that we seem to dance around is phallus size.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
the
issue. So the position is, if in their mind the phallus size is larger in this man, then I can't let him also be economically stable, educationally stable, stable in housing, stable in race relations. I can't let him be stable in any other facet of life, because his phallus size has the power to wipe out my race.
You really still believe that in
Yes.
today? You still believe?
Yes. It's a deep rooted fear that will come to surface from time to time. For an instance, the family that I was telling you about, I was having a conversation with the young lady that I had originally met at a restaurant with her dad, and we're having this conversation. And while I'm having the conversation, the other white gentleman, he comes up and he steps in between us, like in the middle of the face-to-face conversation. He steps in the middle to say what his position is going to be. But he made it clear to me that he didn't want me engaging her any longer. And she just was asking basic questions about my industry. But he made it clear that my engagement with her was an issue. And I mean, I'm in a room with several dozen people. But again, I believe that is deep rooted. And even to this day, it's not going anywhere. And during lynchings of the past, that has been the number one trophy that's been collected by white men.
Well, we are joined by a man in the future, a good associate of mine. Leon Henry, who's based in England. So anyone from there in the future, Leon, welcome to the conversation. And thanks for taking the time. What do you want to contribute to this conversation?
Well, I think, again, another epic discussion, and very, very good evening, brothers here. It's good to see that we're highlighting some of these things, and I really can side with you both. And when we're in a position where we've got so much knowledge and people do question our actions, we start to question ourselves. What is it that they do want? Why are they questioning, your knowledge, what we just learned from them? They've taught us this, and they don't expect us to know something they don't know. And I mean, me personally, people look at me and say, "Where did you get it from?" I mean, look, there's a book. Hello, you gave it to me to read, and to understand it and to communicate like you. And as Ahmed says, sometimes you need to think, shall I let this out? Are they going to be afraid? Yeah, we have to be careful what we say sometimes. Yeah, who's in the room? And again, we're thinking when someone steps to you and say, "Okay, all right," they try to challenge your thoughts. Yeah, I mean, you have to say, "Wait a minute, what is it going on? Is it they're trying to test your intelligence here? What is the purpose here?" All right, can't we just have a conversation? Guess what? You know that, great. Take it with face value. I've learned this, and you go away and do your research and find out what's really going on. Why is it such a challenge? And are you frightened that somebody knows something that you don't? Come on now, So, but no, I have experience in that, and again, I think I try to just look carefully and say, okay, let's stay focused, because what is it that they want? Are they going to see me just go completely ballistic, or is that what intended to do? Yeah. But now let's seek to understand, to be understood here, and just delve into the conversation to stay calm. Yeah. Not show the other side they've seen. Yeah. There are some intelligent people that they know how to deal with the situation and again provide knowledge, and let them go away and think and come back to say, you know what, I respect you. And they come back to you and say, you know what, I like what you say. And they understand where you're coming from. And this is what we get all the time. And again, I get put this way, for me in the United Kingdom, some people say, oh, I never knew you was a black person on the phone. This is the situation. All right. Yeah. So
I just want to build from this. I want to try to steer it back. And thanks for everyone who is watching the conversation live and people who are subscribing. Thank you so much. First time out of the box, I'm humbled and flattered, and thank you so much. When do you have, each one of you, do you have cross-cultural discussions with men who are not of your color? And if you do, how did you get those conversations started? How did they initially start? Not, of course, you I'm sure you do have them, but how did they start? So give me an example of one of those men that you have cross-cultural discussions with, and how did that start up? Because obviously you're from two different backgrounds. How did you bring that mesh in? So I'll start with Dr. Charles.
So
first.
good question, Doc. And I think, again, I thought about the impetus of this conversation is that one of my good friends, his name is Ryan Mast, and he's a Midwestern dude. We are Kellogg Fellows together. And so we've been able to spend the last 3 years, together working on our various Kellogg projects. And so what really brought us together initially, which tends to bring most men together, is sports. Both of us began training for a triathlon and working out together. And so it was really just the interest of, hey, let's go work out together. But at the end of workouts, you begin having conversations. And somebody said to me a while ago, we don't have the ability to create friends like we used to when we were small, because the key thing to building friendships is time. We spend a lot of time with our friends growing up. I think that's why my high school and elementary best friends are still best friends. We spend a lot of time together, but we just don't have a lot of time as adults. But Ryan and I have been able to build in time because we work out together. And at the end of workouts, we started discussing a lot of things. Ryan is, he's not Baptist, he's not Catholic, he's something else. So we had those conversations about religion. Ryan is also open to looking through. He's like, I want to know what your experiences are like being, an African-American man in this country. Because as a white man, I don't have those same experiences, and I think what brought us together was the Kellogg Fellowship, which is really around racial equity and healing. So it allowed for those conversations, being active in sports, and then open and vulnerable to each other to say, okay, this is what's going on. Particularly that religious conversation that we had last year kind of opened the door to talk about a lot more things. And so we've been able to spend a lot of time talking about religion, sexual orientation, race and equity healing. And so I looked, to have conversations with him when stuff comes up. When Baton Rouge and Minnesota and Dallas came up, we had those conversations, along with a variety of, but it was really that in-depth conversation with him that allowed him to see it. Hey, I can understand this from a greater perspective. But it also incited him to think about how he could then talk to his friends who were saying all the crazy stuff that we hear, like Black Lives Matters are racist. And, they're anti-capitalist and all these different things, all this misconduct by individuals in their mouths when it comes to Black Lives Matter. So that's an example that I would have for you, Doc.
Okay. Ahmed?
I have an individual that's in my industry. He's a white guy, and his extended family, he has some blacks in his extended family. So and just talking with him, I say to him from time to time, going into this meeting, I need you to be the face of the meeting because they're not going to accept me. And initially he was like, that might be your own perspective. But then he started to see it for himself. And now he's pretty comfortable saying, let me go into the meeting first. Let me kind of prep them. And then once I get them prepped, then I'll bring you in as the face. And that works well. I mean, I'm okay with that because the objective is still being accomplished. I don't need to fight every battle, but and actually the 20th of this month, he set up a meeting for me in Atlanta that I'm supposed to be at under the same circumstances that people knew before. And now that he has opened the doorway, now they're open to meeting with me. Once he said, Ahmed is the guy. Why are you talking to me? I can't answer your questions. I'm just going to go back to Ahmed and ask him and then bring you back his answers. So now they're willing to meet with me face to face. But yeah.
Leon.
Okay, I'm going to be very, very quick because this is in the middle of something. I think some of the conversations that start really is from the media, past events, and people say, okay, they want to find out what's happening in our community. From my perspective, as you know, oh, you're not like that, so why are these other people like this? Then this is a long drawn out conversation where you've got to try and defend our particular community, and but again, you can't be judgmental. But again, I gotta look at the point again. Some people don't know, and I don't expect them to know because they don't live the lives. They don't walk our shoes, and they will never have the experience. And if some want to go into and find out, I don't mind sharing it, but. Some people are not educated, and they say you don't know what you don't. We don't know. So I think media just plays a big part. And they obviously they put things out and they portray it, and obviously, oh yeah, you live in that area, and expect you know everything about everything, and no, it's a bit different, to try to explain to these people. So that's where we go from.
I want to ask each one of you: is there any men that are not of your color that you consider friends, and why?
So I have a guy that I met on the internet probably 10 years ago, and we met in a forum, and we started talking, and we were in the martial arts industry together. And he said to me, I can link you with some of the top guys. And he did. And to keep it short, we've been friends since. He has a wedding that he invited me to on the 20th of this month. So I don't know how I'm going to be in Seattle, Washington, and Atlanta at the same time. But I definitely consider him a friend. Went to Seattle, trained with him, taught at his school, met his family. And when I was meeting his father, he said to me, when my father meets you, he's going to probably call you the N-word. So, but when I met his father, he didn't. And good for his dad. But nevertheless, he's done things for me that lets me know that he doesn't just see me as a black guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's great. That's really great, Dr. Charles.
I am blessed to say that I have a multi-dimensional and multifaceted friends, and one of the reasons we kind of label this show cross-cultural, because I think about it's not just having cross-racial conversations, it's having cross-cultural conversations. And so I'm blessed to have a number of friends who, identify in a number of ways, whether it be black, gay, straight, Hispanic, Muslim, Buddhist. I'm just blessed to have a multitude of friends who I just identify, and we have these conversations. And I think we need to have more of these conversations so we can understand each other. I'm fortunate to be able to talk to them about a variety of things that come across, whether, as Leon said, media or current events that happen, and to really get their take. I was really supportive of what was going on with the same-sex marriage and the legalization of same-sex marriage, and supporting my friends who are gay or lesbian. I'm always offended when people talk about Islam and my Muslim friends and not understanding, what's going on with their lives. I'm truly offended, but that has taken an evolution on my part, Doctor, to internalize and empathize and sympathize with my friends who identify differently than I do. But that's those conversations. You know, I have, you know, friends who are atheists. And so growing up in a, you know, Christian Baptist household with a mother who prays for me every day, and to have that conversation with someone, I don't believe in God, you know, and not to judge them based on that. So I've been fortunate to have those conversations, but as well allow myself to do the work, because I wasn't always like this, Doc. You know, if we talked about me being holding the torch for same-sex marriage 15 years ago, I'd have been like, no way, that's not me. So part of this is an evolution, but the other part of it is having conversations and allowing myself to meet new people and bringing them into my life.
Leon, yourself, do you have anyone who's of not same background and color yourself, a male that you regard as a
the first
friend?
thing I've got to define the level of a friend. I that particular word itself means someone's really close I share a lot of secrets with. I don't. Yeah, it's my personal choice. I don't even have a lot of friends. Wow, I'm a bit of an awkward person, so this is the reason why.
Okay. Everyone has their own definition,
Yeah.
their own standards. So no judgment, no judgment.
This is the reason why. So, but no, I have a lot of business associates, and again, I try to not let color be a barrier, because I have multiple people around the world that I work with. They don't even know if I'm black anyway, because they've never seen me before. So I just go into business and then ensure I provide quality of service. But yeah, for friends, I can only say there's only one or two people that know me, and I associate with that I share this thing. But again, I don't. If I did have somebody of a different race, it won't be an issue to me. Again, you know, do we solve a problem? Do we get along? And you know, can we share experiences? But I don't have anybody of that. I can't think. There's only one or two people that I can say, and no, it's just a personal choice. It's not. I'm not ruling people out. If I did have somebody that I grew up with, and I'm sure, but again, it's the way I grew up, and it's not where I lived. I mean, there's predominantly white people, but I didn't choose to associate myself with anybody. But I still don't choose to have a friend that knows everything about me. So, but don't get me wrong. I work with anybody that can bring business, and we can get along, and it's just a business relationship. So I don't discriminate anybody for what they are, who they are, whatever it may be. Again, I've got lots of Muslim friends and whatever it may be, and got friends like associates. So it doesn't stop me from doing what I've got to do.
Let me ask gentlemen here, what impact, and I think indirectly all of you or directly have mentioned about the media, how much impact does the media have on this topic?
I'm trying to think, when do I see these non-adversarial cross-cultural conversations or cross-racial conversations? When do I see them? And right now I'm thinking about the elections here in our country, and usually it's the right arguing against the left arguing against the right. And so when do I get to see, if I watch SportsCenter, I think I could see that. What do you think, Ahmed?
You know, looking at the media, I feel that when the conversation arises, it's always me against you type of conversation. It's always, well, you have the blacks doing this, you have the blacks over here doing all Black Lives Matter, but then you have this group over here doing All Lives Matter. You know, instead of saying, wait a minute, guys, since we are the media and we are reporting on this story, let us shed a little light on why we need to come together, instead of just reporting opposing views of stories that you select. you're not just reporting stories, but on selected stories, you're reporting opposing views. So everyone is going to see the other person as the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that keeps the argument fueled instead of, showing that we can come together. And in my years of watching the news, and I haven't watched the news in a very long time, but growing up watching the news, I would, anytime there was an incident that happened in my city, I would always question, why did they find that black guy to interview? Why him? There's a guy in a suit at the scene. Why didn't they interview him? Why did they interview Bobo the homeless man? Everyone in Baltimore City knows he's the city drunk. But you chose to interview him over the guy that's well-dressed, articulate, and because you interviewed Bobo the homeless man, now it seems like every one of us is Bobo the homeless man.
Right.
You see? You can see, we can see it clearly in the day. Look, we've got to be careful of that square box. The tele vision. That's what they call it.
and I'll just add this.
Right.
If Leon is in the UK and he's seeing Bobo the homeless man, and that is becomes his perception over 10, 20, 30, 40 years. When I go to the UK to set up international business with Leon, he's going to have a preconceived notion. He's going to say, hey, dude, I've been watching the news in Baltimore for the last 40 years, and I know how over 40 years how all of you guys think, talk, and behave. So why would he ever want to do business with me when he's been watching the media report this negative image of African Americans, blacks in America? Why would he ever want to do business? So that then keeps blacks in America in the box from expanding their economic base internationally.
100%. I'm not gonna lie. If you really want my perspective on that, yeah, this is how it's been portrayed in the day. And unfortunately, we say some people hate Americans because of their culture and their attitude. But I have to say, not everybody's like that. I mean, guess what? This is what the media portrays. This is what they put out there. But yes, the media do not have this diverse side where there are some smart people here. They don't want to show that because they'll be frightened. Because guess what? Somebody will come out and tell the actual host where the real statistics is. And again, they get somebody here. Guess what? They're promoting their agenda. Where somebody will challenge you on a topic that's really, really pressing to people, because obviously, it may be for legal reasons. They want, they're frightened because this may get out, and it was, a backlash, and what social media would do, it'll blow up. We saw XYZ on XYZ, but they want, they want attention. Fair enough, but hey, we'll create our own stories in a day that we can project to people, and they can see the real truth where they can learn. We've got places like this where we can come and talk about things that we need to, and get the message out to a lot of people and educate people. Look, you know what? There's more to the story than we've got to start thinking. That box over there is lying to you now. These guys will tell you the truth, and make your own judgment.
I know that Dr. Charles has to run soon. He's put in the comment section about spending the last couple of minutes of his time on talking about how do we facilitate more of these conversations. So, gentlemen, let's ask, how can more of these conversations be facilitated cross-culturally? What are your thoughts?
Well, one of the last conversations that I had with Dr. Charles, he presented the idea of the Jeffersonian table. And at that time, I was unsure about how I felt about it. And I want him to know that I've still been challenged by it. But at the same time, I'm leaning more towards, I do feel it's necessary. So there's an evolution that's happening there. When the timing should be and under what the circumstances should be, I would need to, I guess, be appraised by him more, so that I could grow in that arena. But we definitely, I think we need it. We need to start combating the conversation that's been playing in people's heads for so long, that we are an invaluable people, and we do need to have a conversation about it a lot.
Leon, Leon, I'll let you go next, and also let Dr. Charles last.
Start with the Dr. Vibe show. Come in on a regular basis. It's simple as that. No more. All right. That's what I got to say. Listen, stay here, stay tuned. Dr. Vibe brings the heat in the day. Just go out and tell your friends another day, discuss with these things, learn information, just collectively come together. If we can't do it, pass it on to the other children today, so they can start to develop the conversations and build a relationship with people, and just understand people's culture. I also say, as so the guys, Stephen Harvey, seek to understand to be understood. Have the more conversations, talk. Not even belongs men, women as well. They will tell you how they're feeling every day, and just get that community spirit back where it was, and start to build this village, and start possible a bit more. That's my thoughts.
Dr. Charles, what do you see facilitating more of these conversations cross-culturally between men?
I think one is getting out of your comfort zone.
Okay, let's stop right there. What do you feel it's going to take what do you feel some of the things it takes for a man to get out of his comfort zone when it comes to this? Because getting out of his comfort zone is an easy thing to say, but with a lot of men, it's a much more challenging thing to do.
We always talk about doing the internal work here. And I think when you challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone, and the impetus has to begin with you. And getting out of your comfort zone means maybe getting out of your privilege as well. And so, because we've talked about this before, Doc, privilege is a blindfold. If you have the privilege, you don't have to see. You can just walk blindly. But to be uncomfortable means, for some, you have to get out of your privilege to see what the world is like behind you. And that's, I do this privilege oppression walk with some of my trainings. And when I have the people in the front turn around and they see the people after all those questions who have lived, privilege and oppression, and they see, wow, I haven't lived this life. The opportunity has been in front of me, And then when I turn around and see some of my colleagues who have experienced oppression, people that I work with, it kind of rips off the blindfold. And so you do become uncomfortable. And what you do in that time of uncomfortability, that is going to challenge you to be a better person, hopefully. So getting out of your comfort zone, leaning into the discomfort, and then opening yourself up to having conversations with people who you may not have had conversations with before. And that doesn't mean being the awkward dude and running up to Ahmed and saying, hey, you're a black man. I want to talk to you about this whole Black Lives Matters thing. No. How do you start genuine conversation with people? Hello, I'm Leon. How are you? Nice to meet you. Is there an opportunity that we might be able to have a conversation about some of these things? Or just, can we sit and have a drink as men do, or men and women do? And even in that first conversation, it doesn't have to be about these heady thoughts, or it can just be about us getting to know who is Charles, who is Ahmed, who is Leon, who is Dr. Vibe, and building that. But if you are afraid to have a conversation with a Muslim man, or a black man, or a Hispanic man, you're going to live inside of your comfort. And so it doesn't do anyone a service when you can't get outside of that.
Well, I know, Dr. Charles, it's the top of the hour and you need to jump off. So no worries if you have to jump off. If you have to leave us, you at least leave contact information that people can get a hold of you at. And you can also type it in on the
You can
side.
reach me. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate it. It's always good. Ahmed, man, brother, I need to come. I need to come where y'all. We can sit and break bread. Leon,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna make it to London, brother, but I would love to break bread with you. Doc, I might be in Toronto soon, so I'll keep you posted. But you can reach me at my email address is Corprew, CORPREW at wyrevolution.com. On Twitter, it's at wyrevolution. Or you can check out my company's website, which is wyrevolution.com. So thanks, Doc. I appreciate you.
We'll see you in, I guess, in 2 weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, 2 weeks is great.
All right, no problem. Take care, man. Keep the faith. All right, so we're continuing on the conversation for a little bit. Dr. Charles is pretty hardcore. He's gone to the top of the hour, so I let him do what he needs to do. I think it's a very interesting stuff about cross-cultural conversations, and I think I'm going to ask both of you, has your growing up environment had any impact on you having cross-cultural conversations with other men? Now, I'll use a perfect example. My father was an educator, and where he taught, he was, for most of the 32 years, the only person of color. Now, of course, when he was outside of the workplace, he dealt with he dealt with mainly people of color. But I can also use myself as an example that you're not always in that same environment all the time. Is it easier now for you to have a cross-cultural conversation with a man than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Is it easier or more difficult?
I'd like to jump on that one. Yes, it is for me personally, because growing up in the UK in the 70s and 80s, this was the 70s and 80s. We did have riots, and there was a lot of stigma. I mean, again, I was, what you could say, a victim of a racial abuse at a point. But again, talking to other races, it gave me the understanding what is really all about. What is their culture? What do they do? If I didn't have that, I would never understand. Yeah, and I think one point is the day is that if I was naive to all, I really wouldn't be here today, because what certain people can do and why they do it. Yeah, over here we don't have everybody's sort of migrated, and it's okay, there isn't a segment where it's predominantly black and they're pro-black. Yeah, we don't have that over here. Yeah, so in situations, sometimes you're forced to migrate, because if you step outside that, yeah, you're going to get labeled, and you'll have a mental attitude in the business place. You've got to know this well, and you've got to understand how people communicate in the business place. For me, I think growing up, as I said, having these conversations at an early age, it allowed me to get into the business place, understand this well, and not even now to deal with the business place when there's not people of my color in there. So it has given me the great exception to go way beyond, because I've been told, Leon, you got a different attitude to some certain Americans. And I thought, this is quite interesting. What is it they're seeing in me whereby I can communicate to these people? Yeah, this is in America, in a big corporate company. And I'm looking around and they're hiring me versus the white person. Because again, I can communicate to them in a way it makes some sense. And again, they may not feel that I'm a threat to them. But they don't know, but I'm clued up in my head and know what to do. So I think that's for me.
Okay. Ahmed.
I think at one point in my life, I didn't care to have the conversation. I I was definitely against having a conversation. I felt that the conversation had been clearly communicated for hundreds of years. So it was no need in having any more conversation about it. I remember, though, when I joined the fire department, that my lieutenant, who was a white guy, he came to me and he handed me a packet of information. And I thought, I got tons of work to do already. Why is he handing me more work? And he said to me, this packet of information is all of the questions and answers for your next 5 promotional exams. Study them and learn them. And over time, he explained to me, and I grew to understand what his position was. And he basically told me straight out that all of the white guys know this information. All of the white guys pass this information around. But it's the way that we get promoted around here, because the information that needs to be studied is too vast for just the average person to study by themselves. He's like, I'm giving you the keys to the vault. And he said, anytime you need to take a promotional test from firefighter to battalion chief, let me know and I'll get you the questions and answers to all of the tests. And I started to realize at that point that the way that we're going to make progress is we have to have some conversations, even if they're difficult conversations, because there's some information that we're not privy to that's going to help benefit us. And at the same time, because I was now more educated in my position at work, that was a benefit to him because I was the guy watching his back. So we definitely need to have the conversation. We definitely need to share information. And I mean, I'm not with them any longer. It's been 20 years that haven't been with them. So I can say what I'm saying now. And I think he's retired as well. I wouldn't have said what I'm saying now back then, because I wouldn't have wanted to expose, the secret, but the secret is there and we're just not privy to it.
Well, on that note, I'm going to end off the first Fire Talk conversation of the Dr. Vibe show, or I say Dr. Vibe conversation. And I'd like to say thanks to Dr. Charles. I'd like to say thanks to Ahmed. Thanks to Leon. Want to shout out other people. Akila, thank you so much. Danielle Booz, thank you. Elanan, thank you. I want to try as much as possible give roll call out to as many people. Big Brother Ray, thank you so much for coming on. This is the first of many that are happening. And myself and Dr. Charles do bi-weekly conversations at 7 p.m. Eastern time, most of the time when he can slow down. So for Ahmed, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
It's best to reach me on Twitter at Ahmed, AMED, Hazel, HA. That's the best way. And then we could set up further communication there.
Excellent. Leon, give the contact information you feel comfortable giving. I can't hear Leon.
You can hear me now. I've got myself on mute because I'm typing in the background. Sorry, that's the reason why I can't even see the screen. Yes, I am very, very selective, as I said, who I choose. My time is very precious. I don't really give up much, but more importantly, again, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you do want to reach out to me, please be clear on what is your objective and what you want. End of the day, and I probably can help you the best way I can. Read through what I do first, understand the business model before reaching out, because I want to ensure that I give you all my time and precious time, and obviously to grow together as a business and ensure I help your business grow. That's me in a nutshell. And so it's actually Right, just Google. I mean, so not Google me. I mean, go into LinkedIn. That's where you'll find me. You won't find me anywhere else on social media. Again, it's intentional. Yeah, people buy from people. They don't buy from websites, by the way.
Well, thank you both very much, gentlemen. I've shouted out everybody, including yourselves. For myself, if you want to touch base with me, I'll give you my Twitter handle, and also give you my email address. Thank you for making the first conversation on Fire Talk a success. Tomorrow night, 8:30, we'll be back on Fire Talk. And another thing, too, when I have conversations for men, ladies, you're more than welcome to join in also. So don't feel it's a men-only thing. Many of my conversations, women do jump in. So tomorrow night, 8:30, I was thinking about this one, and I'll get it going tomorrow night, 8:30. Men, what are your thoughts on race and racism? Leon's going, Dr. Vibe is coming out very easy on Fire Talk, but that's tomorrow night on Fire Talk, 8:30 Eastern Time. Men, what are your thoughts on race and racism? I think we'll have.
I'm gonna be
comments.
on the sideline on that one, mate.
We should get that started now.
I'm on the side. Make me moderate on that one.
Well, on Fire Talk, only the host can moderate, unfortunately. But hey, I'd like to say thank you very much for Fire Talk for making their platform available. I am enjoying it so far, so good. Love the stability of the platform. Love also the interaction. Thanks, everyone. And if anyone, please subscribe to the channel. And when I'm not on live, I'm every day or almost every second day putting up previous conversations from the Dr. Vibe show. So right now, the majority of conversations I have up are from 2013. So yeah, even back then I was doing my conversations. So this one will be up in a little bit, but also go to the website, go to my website, and there's even more conversations there. www.thedrvibeshow.com. So I'd like to say, as always, you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and your solution for someone's problem. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. And thanks for making this another epic conversation. God bless.